Welcome to the 4 Bars Podcast. I'm Ken Leith.
And I'm Patty Leith. We are your hosts for some compelling dialogue, encouraging our listeners to strengthen their connections
And build strong communities, lifting each other up and connecting in ways that matter.
We named the podcast 4 Bars as a reference to how hard we work to find a 4 Bars connection on our devices.
And we wondered what could happen with relationships if we worked as hard at connecting.
Let's find out. Welcome back to 4 Bars Podcast. I'm Patty Leith.
And I'm Ken Leith.
And we have with us, again for the second time, Iffy Ibekwe. And she is recently promoted Vice President and Senior Trust Officer at Arvest Wealth Management. Welcome, and thanks for doing a second episode with us.
My pleasure.
We're going to dig deeper into all things money related and wealth management related. I met Iffy at Blake Street probably a couple of years back.
Yeah.
We both worked out together. The first thing we did together was we went to see the Barbie movie together.
Oh, we sure did.
Super fun. And then she started this great book club. She referenced it in our last episode. And it called the Money Moves Book Club at Blake Street. And the first time that I went, it just opened my eyes about all things money. One of which is there's a lot of things that we are not taught throughout our long lives, and we're afraid to ask. So we're going to dig deeper into this whole concept of wealth management and financial exploration and putting together a team of people that you can trust.
Absolutely.
So tell us about what led you to start Money Moves Book Club.
You know, I don't know if Blake Street asked me to do it or I had one. Oh, I know how it started. We ended up doing a program on money mindset. Mm-hmm. I believe was the very first one, and maybe about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago at this point, where we talked about money mindset. And we had a moderator, and they interviewed me and someone else about money mindset, and it was so well attended, and there were so many people there, and they were having all these breakthroughs and discoveries about their family of origin and their money stories is what we called it. How they viewed money is shaped by where you're from, what household you were born into, maybe your parents, what you saw in your community, and we carry those things oftentimes unexamined throughout the course of our lives.
Yes, we do. I've done a lot of examination of those, and it's been really good for me to really think into, how did my parents deal with money, and and what did I take away from that that's good, and what did I take away from that probably isn't helping.
Right.
Yeah. Good exploration.
So that's how it started, and I think because it was well attended and they keep track of those sorts of things, they said, hey, why don't you do a book club on money? And so that's how it started. And we often will have someone come and speak or moderate, and we just have a topic. And it's just a very open conversation, loosely structured, and really just a time for people to share. And sometimes they just drop so many wisdom bombs that you're just like, oh my gosh, that was my reason for coming today. It's like that was so impactful. Or people share things that they've learned on their journey that I just would never have thought that someone would share so openly, right? Mm-hmm. And it's helpful for everybody to hear and demystify talking about money because it's so taboo and secretive and you're not supposed to say the thing. But then when you start to say the thing, it allows you to say even more things about it. And just get the information. So,
and that led you to get together with a group of women here in the community, and you offered a workshop that was beautifully well attended and amazingly well put on. It was very life-changing for me and some of the messages that I heard, called Demystifying Money.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, we had a conference last fall. Oh my gosh, like 6 months ago or more now.
I know.
And it was almost a full day event where we talked about everything from budgeting to investing to private equity, generosity, caring for aging parents. And it was a panel, and sometimes we had an individual speaker. We had about 175 to 180 people attend, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
We really got experts from primarily Northwest Arkansas to showcase their expertise on stage and have it facilitated. there was so much demand for it. I get questions about it, like, when's the next one? When are we doing this again? And I'm like, so much work.
It was a lot of work.
So much work.
But
And
it was fantastic.
it was fantastic.
So well
and it's just something that our community needs, which is financial literacy, and financial education and financial empowerment, and just giving people permission to start something or continue something or to go for the next thing. Again, it goes back to having that open conversation about money where people share what they're doing, so it doesn't feel so taboo, or you don't feel like you're behind, because people often feel like, I didn't learn this. So what if we democratize the education and allowed people to learn it, you know, and what would that do to enrich our community, right?
Yeah. And there's not a lot really in most school curriculums do not offer anything along those lines. And I think that I had my eyes rudely opened when my son was a junior and I asked him to write a check and he didn't know how. My bad, but really, is it my bad? Should he not have learned that in school?
I don't know that he even needs that anymore.
He doesn't need that now, but he's a little older now.
It's like when people said, yeah, don't you balance your checkbook? I'm like, never balance my checkbook. I mean, it's like if the money was there. I never use the ledger in the back, but there are people who grew up thinking it's just changed. You know what I mean? And that's the other part of it. Money changes, like the way we interact with it. My kids think that when I pull out a debit card or a credit card, it's just like the money tree. They're like, well, just use your phone. And now it's on my Apple Pay. They're like, well, just pay with your phone. You don't need your, because I said, well, I didn't bring my wallet. They're like, well, just pay with your phone. It's just like money, right? Like, what does it mean? We no longer are always counting it out or writing it out. Sometimes you just Venmo and that's the transaction. So I don't think you failed in that regard.
No, but what you playing your point there is, I think that younger people, including children, whereas the checkbook wasn't necessarily we were kids, even my parents did that. But technology now, they're very technology savvy, so they can pick up on, I can really make the connection between mom's got technology, so we can still
technology is our access point for this Lego set.
Right. Yes. This thing and this concept of the balance of the account that's not tied.
Yeah, well, they have no concept. They're like, that's a deep pit of wealth, right, in your phone. So buy the thing.
Set of what I want.
I'm like, where am I failing? They have to know the value of a dollar. Yeah.
I'm sure that parents around the globe are thinking the same thing at times and stuff. I read an article a while back, and it was talking about the same topic you just mentioned about children and understanding, kind of the financial ends and how to do that. And the discussion was about starting to, at a much earlier age, help children build credit.
Oh, yeah.
And in a way that you can open an account for them, keep money in there, give them a little bit of money to interact with, and that by the time they get to college or college age, whereas in the past it's been, well, you get to college, you get out, have you really built your credit rating?
Yeah, that's interesting.
That a lot of folks are starting to build their credit for their children, with their children, and teach them that so that when they get there, they already have it established and they're not working uphill.
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
So as an individual begins to think about navigating their own financial picture, where do they start? How do they get an understanding of what they need to do? Yeah. And then what are the resources available to them?
I think that there are many places to start. I always stress the importance of knowing what you have, right? So maybe you open up a spreadsheet and write out all of your accounts and your assets, your liabilities, your monthly payments, your subscriptions, all the things, right? One way people do it, I'm not prescribing a perfect way because everyone has to come about finding out what works for them differently, is just to look at your bank statement or your credit card statement and see what you're spending on and where your money is going. A lot of people have a very difficult time just looking at their money because it's so confronting. And sometimes there's shame there, or you overspent, or you had a plan, or maybe you even had a budget and you blew your budget. And so it's like this shame spiral. And so I think the first step is just looking at your money for some people and seeing where everything is. And then based on that, there are so many strategies for managing your money, one of the things that we do at Arvest is we have financial advisors that are able to help you set up your investments, your budget, your kids' college, retirement planning, insurance planning, which is something a lot of people don't think about. But at a certain age, even long-term care insurance is very important, right? To figure out the world's changed. So, the idea that my kids will take care of me may not be the case, right? We also help in the trust department with estate planning and carrying out the wishes that people have for managing their money if they're incapacitated or when they pass away. What is the succession plan, business succession planning? Those are all things that are touched by finances.
Yeah.
Because some people might just think investing, that's it, right? But it doesn't stop there. There's so many other things that are impacting your life, your sleep, your mental health that have to do with your money. And I strongly recommend that people first take a look at it and then have someone help you professionally to look at that if it's a block that you have and if you're struggling to manage your assets holistically, not just, okay, I'm in the black, but what else could you be doing, right? Or should I put my money here versus there? There's so many tools available. So.
And so as a person decides what kind of help they need, what steps would they take to really get in tune with that?
Yeah, I think you make an appointment. If you go the route of working with a professional, you make an appointment and they're going to really dig into your life and ask you questions about some of your goals and some of your needs and some of your wants and be able to sort of build that out and map out where you are today to see if you're in the right direction, moving in the right direction for what you want to accomplish, And just like I don't repair my car, I go to a mechanic. If it's something you cannot do, there are people out there that can help you do that. And that's something that's very important to realize that even in our community here, there are people that can help and make sure, or maybe they just reassure you that you're on the right track, right? Versus starting from scratch or you're behind, which I think most people think they're behind.
Yes.
Or they should have done something or bought that plot of land when they were here 21 years ago when it was, I'm
rural. Sure I'm in that boat.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. And so therefore you failed sometime in the past and now you can't look at it. So that's the first step. And then everyone's journey will be divergent. Yeah. So it just depends on where you're trying to go.
How does trust work into all of this?
Yes. Trust is, it's one of my passion topics. In my past life, I was an estate planning attorney. So I created hundreds of wills and trusts for individuals and couples and families, basically putting their wishes down. And so estate planning is the concept of planning your estate. We all have an estate. You don't have to be uber rich to have an estate. It sounds very grandiose to say I'm estate planning, like my manor, somewhere in the English countryside. No, you all have an estate. And so what that means is that you have to decide what you want to do with your physical body and decisions related to your healthcare, and then what you want to do with your assets when you pass away. With your body, it's while you're alive as well, which a lot of people don't realize, whether that's a healthcare directive. If you are incapacitated, who steps in? If it's a financial directive, okay, if you're incapacitated, who's paying my mortgage every month? The assumption that, my mom will do it or my spouse will do it is not a good one, because you have to designate if they're not on that account, who has access, right? And so estate planning is a process of designating who those people are. When we die, and we will all die.
Yes.
Your estate has to be settled. So that means that they close it down, and that also takes a court process, right? Unless you set up something like a trust. A trust allows you to bypass that probate process if you set it up correctly, and that way your life can be wound down or your assets can be distributed privately. And that's why people use trusts. And there's so many different types of trusts, but that's what a trust is. And you don't have to have a ton of assets to do it. It's just a streamlined way of shutting down your estate. You've basically put all the ducks in a row in order for that to be handled. What we do in the trust department at Arvest is we would look at a trust, and your document would say who the first trustee is. A lot of people that create a trust, they'll name themselves. And then we can step in as the successor trustee, which means something happens to you, not death, but even incapacitation or death, we can then step in to follow the wishes of your trust documents, which can include, okay, if when I pass away, I'd like to liquidate my assets and distribute it to these 3 people in this charity, or I want it to all go to a charity, I want it to go to my beloved son, or I want my dog taken care of like this, or I want to support the University of Arkansas. Whatever you decide, someone has to follow those wishes. And that's what our trust department does. We have a slew of trust officers, professionals, fiduciaries, which means that we have to work in your best interest. And they will do everything from closing down your estate, selling your house, having an estate sale, distributing assets, to managing investments. So if you have money that we are managing and investing for you, we're able to then distribute it, whether it's paying for a grandchild's college or to help this certain organization, or however your wishes are in the document or through our interpretation of your document. That is what the department does, is it helps people with that part of it. And the reason that's important is because what do you hear about when families have a loved one who passes away? It's like everyone comes together and it's kumbaya.
Yeah.
It's usually like, Mom said that I was supposed to get her dining table. It's always something
It's always something.
that comes up. And sometimes it can be the most minute. Oh my gosh, I was supposed to get grandma's, quilts.
Yes.
And that's World War III, right? And so if you can take your family out of having to deal with the loss or the burden of having to take care of a loved one and have that managed by somebody who is neutral on the family dynamics, then that's a blessing that you can give to your family.
And then you take away you take away one very large stressor at the time of mourning.
Yes.
And we are never our best selves when we're mourning. And I'll do a shout out for trust. Just Ken and I have both lost both of our parents, and while that is an exceptionally hard thing to go through, and it's very eye-opening through the process, it's also a blessing to have been the ones to say goodbye to them versus the other way around. My dad had a trust, very easy to finalize his estate. His dad had none, and it was almost 5 years.
It was a couple of years, for sure.
Well, yeah, it was probably.
But I will say that
It was a long time.
It was a learning experience. And,
it's expensive too.
It's expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And, I talked to him on several occasions about potentially the need for a trust. And along the way, though, when my mom passed away, he kind of just said, well, it's all going to be handled and stuff. But
doing that's important.
When we were not a whole lot of people, as far as my younger brother had passed prematurely. So what we did, though, was my sister handled it first, but then she had been a caregiver for different family members, and she was just kind of at the end. So then she transferred it to me.
Wow.
So they had to go fly back to Maryland and go through the court system to get that transitioned over and stuff. And then it was like restarting over again, which is one reason it took so long. But it was a incredible, I will say, painful learning experience of not having a trust to exactly what you're speaking of.
Yes, and I don't think people estimate the time and energy when it's not streamlined. It can be flights, court dates, hiring an attorney versus let's just manage that.
Yes.
Just ongoing, endless.
Yes.
It's a frustration. So, right.
Filing taxes.
So when we got married, second marriage for both of us, and our children were older, one of the first things we did was set up a trust.
Really?
Oh, yes. And
That's so smart.
And at the very beginning, Greg, who's Patty's son, who was 14 at the time or so, and his sister now was older. So we set it up that if something happened prematurely to us and Greg needed someone who would be his guardian, that his sister would do. To which her reply was, "You mean I get to tell Greg what to do?" For how many years?
For how many years?
So,
But figuring all of those things out in advance for your kids is
So important.
such a gift.
Yeah.
And
It's an awkward conversation,
It
and it can
is.
be very confronting, but it is a gift
it is for sure.
to have your documents prepared and managed, properly.
So if a listener is listening to this and going, yeah, I need a few of these things.
Yeah.
How do they assemble a financial team? What's important to figure out when you're doing that?
There's so many components of a team, and it depends on what you need, right? There are some people who need someone to financially plan for them. You might need a lawyer to draft documents for you. If you have a business and you set up a succession plan, you may need a lawyer to set up those documents for you and make sure that's done. If you need insurance, you might need somebody to provide insurance for you. And so it depends on what you need. I think the assessment is the first part of, okay, what am I trying to accomplish here? Getting some good advice. And then building your team. You might need a CPA to do your taxes and make sure all of that is coordinated. So I never prescribe just one type of team because everyone's situation is different. And you might need advice from several different types of people, or in several parts of, I guess in various parts of your life or seasons of your life, you might need a lot.
Yes.
I really needed my CPA because we got this tax thing happening, right? And so the idea is that for whatever the issue is or whatever the need is, that you can assemble who you need and you don't have to do it alone, right? The idea that you have to go to a one-stop shop, I don't know where you go where you get everything in one stop. That's usually not the case. You usually have different people who have different skill sets who help you. But when I talk about a team approach, it really is helpful to start making that a norm, right? That you don't have to go at it alone. And I think that is the first step in saying, oh, there's somebody who has an answer or who can point me in the direction of the right answer. So that's where I'd start.
So I do have a question as we kind of near the ending and begin to think about wrapping up our conversation. As you think about wealth management and the position that you hold for a very well-respected regional bank here in Northwest Arkansas, what do you think that the position of wealth management offers a community?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I think that it is a gift to have
I do too.
wealth management within our community. And again, I want to make sure that I emphasize that wealth management is not just for wealthy people. Wherever you are, it's a gift to have the ability to walk into your bank and get some help, right? And that's not available in every community. And for Northwest Arkansas, I think it's wonderful. I think that you get to gather professionals and various designations, right? At our bank, we have various professionals who are now working in the banking sector who are able to look with those eyes on what your issue is, right? And so the word that comes to mind is that it's a gift and that's something that you shouldn't think that you are excluded from, but something that might work very well for you. So.
Well, and I also think that as we get our hands around our own finances, it enables us to contribute more to the community, and that builds a better community
And
So-
trust, right?
And trust, yeah, for
Deepens
sure.
the roots of the place. So, in the place. So.
Yeah. Any last minute thoughts or advice for our viewers?
Well, I'm just very honored to be asked to come and speak to you today. And I just encourage people out there to take the next right step for you, whatever that is. That's what I always, whenever I speak, I like to encourage people to take your next right step. And if you want to share it with me, I'm happy to hear that. But as you listen, if something has piqued your interest, if there's a takeaway, take action on that thing. Do the next right thing for you.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, you know yourself better than anybody else. Take an action.
When I can say, just personally speaking, given the experiences I've had that you've made available, that understanding of your money story and how it's impacting your decisions is huge. So do some work in that. That would be my advice.
Work on yourself.
Do some work in that. That's been very, very helpful to me to really look at that. So, well, we are honored that you would take your time to do this in the middle of such a busy week. And we thank you so much. It's been delightful to chat with you. Have a great day, viewers, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. The 4 Bars podcast has been brought to you by Edges Inc., a growth advisory firm based in Bentonville, Arkansas. I founded the company in 2001.
Edges promotes growth of people, companies, and ideas. Our team collaboration tool, called Interface Methods, is a basis for teams to work together more collaboratively, understand each other, and accept differences and address challenges together.
We also started a nonprofit called Unform Your Bias. We teach kids and their adult influencers how to utilize storytelling as a means to reduce bias in the world. We hope you'll check us out, subscribe to our podcast, and look at our websites.